Hi everyone, welcome back to My Cupcake Addiction. Today I'm super excited to be showing you how to make this gorgeous rainbow layer My Little Pony cake. It's rainbow on the inside, it's rainbow on the outside, and it's My Little Pony all over. I had a ton of requests for something My Little Pony. If you guys think I've done a good job on this My Little Pony cake, I would love it if you'd give it a share, give it a like, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's get started. The things that you'll need for today's tutorial: I've got an offset spatula, I've got a serrated knife or a bread knife, I've got an assortment of food colorings, and I've got red, yellow, green, orange, blue, and purple. I've got a batch of our buttercream frosting, which I've divided into 6 bowls. I will link to that recipe in the description box below. A pastry brush. This is a bit of a simple sugar syrup, so I just use like 2 tablespoons of apricot jam with 3 tablespoons of water and just microwave it. I've got my 2 little My Little Pony figurines, so I went with Rainbow Dash and Rarity, but of course you can use your favorite My Little Pony characters. I've got a little printable rainbow template. I'll leave a link to that one in the description box below, and this one's perfect for a 6-inch cake. I've also got my baked rainbow layers of cake, so I'll be showing you how to bake these, but you'll need a double batch of either a packet cake mix or enough of your favorite vanilla or white cake mix to make the equivalent of 2 6-inch round cakes. I've also got a 6-inch cake tin and some baking paper or greaseproof paper. I've got 2 bamboo skewers, some sticky tape, some spoons. I'm using a Loyal number 15 open round pastry tip or piping tip, and a disposable piping bag. I've got a 10-inch wooden cake board, which I'm just resting on a cake decorating turntable for ease of today's tutorial. I've got some Jaffas. You can also use Whoppers, Maltesers, just any kind of a round candy. Some cornflour, some white fondant, and a fondant rolling pin. First of all, you want to make up your vanilla mix. So I'm just going to use a packet mix today, but you can use your favorite vanilla cake mix, or you can use the vanilla cake mix out of my Cupcake Addiction recipe ebook, which I will link to in the description box below. You want to mix that up, and once it's all mixed, you want to divide your batter evenly. I'm just making 5 layers today because I'm not going to do a blue layer of cake. I'm going to make some red. I'm just adding a generous amount of color to each of my bowls. So I've got red, yellow, green, purple, and orange, and I'm mixing that color all the way through so I can't see any white batter, particularly in the bottom corners of the bowls. You want to completely line your cake tin with your greaseproof or baking paper, and then we're just going to scoop in. I'm going to start with that purple or whatever your base color is going to be, and use your spoon just to level it out in the bottom of that container. I always put a circle of the greaseproof paper in the bottom and then a collar of the greaseproof paper doubled over around the outside. You want to repeat this process for each of your layers. They're going to take about 15 to 20 minutes per layer. They're only thin, but they are still 6 inches. So you want to make sure that they're cooked all the way through, and you'll know they're done when they spring back in the middle. So you can see I'm really just repeating the process with each of our different colors until they're all made. Let those completely cool, and while they're cooling, we can color up our buttercream frosting. You do want a generous amount of color in both the batters and the frostings because this is a rainbow cake and you want those colors to pop. If you're using liquid colors, you'll always need a little bit more of that than your color pastes because the color pastes are a bit more concentrated, so you don't need as much. Mixing all of that color through, once again making sure that we're not getting any white left in our buttercream frosting. And then you want to take your cooled, cooked layers, and we're just going to carve the tops off them. So you can see they're all a bit brown on top, but once you carve away that kind of just cooked edge, you've got a really nice, bright, vibrant color. You want to repeat that, and you can actually use these leftover offcuts for some of our rainbow cake pops. I will leave those in the description box below, but they're a great pairing for this cake, and they're also a great way to use up any leftovers. With all of your cake layers cooked, cooled, and carved, it's time to start stacking. So a little bit of that purple frosting straight down on the cake board, so you've got something for your bottom layer to stick to, and then down goes the cake. Now I'm going to syrup my cake. If you're going to serve this the same day or the morning after you're making it, there's no need to syrup, but the syrup will just help it retain its moisture and stop it from drying out. Now, using my offset spatula, I'm just applying a thin coat of that purple frosting. The difference between this rainbow layer cake and other rainbow layer cakes is a lot of them break up the different colors in the rainbow with white frosting, but I've opted to take that rainbow coloring all the way through because we've got to color that frosting to go around the outside edges anyway. On goes your next layer, which for me is going to be green, and another coat of syrup before applying another, just a thin coat of that buttercream frosting. I will mention with these cakes, it is best if you can get all of your layers about the same height because it gives them that really uniform look when you cut into them. We're only going to syrup that top layer, we're not going to put any frosting on, and then I'm going to take my purple just on the tip of my offset spatula because I really only want purple along the bottom inch or so of that cake, and I'm just going around the outside. Taking your green now, you want to kind of do it just in a line above that purple so you can see what we're doing. Then we're doing some orange. Red's going to go on top. Now these side colours don't have to be perfect. They're really just to give you a bit of a crumb coat or a bit of a base coat, but we don't want them to be all the same colour because we want them to look rainbow when the cake's cut into. So now I'm just using my offset spatula. I'm going to scrape back the sides, and don't worry if your colours blend into each other a little bit, but you want to try and get the sides as flat as you can, and then spend a little bit of time just trying to give yourself a relatively sharp edge on the top. Pop that cake off into the freezer for about 20 minutes and let that first coat of buttercream frosting completely set so that you've got a really nice firm base to start working on. And then you want to fill that disposable piping bag with your first colour, which for me is going to be purple, paired up with that loyal number 15 open round tip. So I'm going to tilt the cake a little bit, and you can see here what I'm doing is I'm squeezing out just a small blob of icing, and then I'm actually using the ridge of the tip to flatten that frosting off, which gives us this really nice petal effect. Make sure that with each of your colours you're starting at the same point and finishing at the same point on the back, because you can have a slightly uneven edge where those petals start and finish. So moving on to the green, and you'll see I'm starting exactly where I started with the purple, and I'm just overlaying a blob and then smoothing it down. Going on to the yellow now, once again starting at that join at the back, and then moving on to the orange. You do want to be careful here that you've got enough space for all 5 of your colours going up the cake. So my red is finishing really, really nice and flush with the top. You've got a little bit of leeway. Now, blue. We didn't do a blue cake layer because I want this to look like the sky and the clouds for our My Little Pony cake. So instead of going around the edges, we're going around the top, and you'll see that I'm actually going kind of in on an angle as I'm squeezing and flattening those little blobs and making almost like a petal flower effect on the top of the cake. Still coming in our little layers, but there's going to be quite a bit more blue frosting than any of your other colours. When you get to the centre, you just want to squeeze in 3 or 4 little petals to kind of finish it off like the little centre bud of a flower in there. That's your basic rainbow layer cake. Now to turn this into a My Little Pony rainbow layer cake, you just want to take your 2 skewers and your printable rainbow template with a little bit of sticky tape. Sticky tape those 2 skewers on, and you've got your little support structure for your rainbow. Tilt them in a little bit just so that they fit nicely into the cake, and then you just want to position them into the cake, but make sure the base of that rainbow is not actually touching the frosting, or else the frosting is going to get absorbed up into it and it's actually going to start to discolour your rainbow. Put a little bit of cornflour down now, and you want to roll out some of that white fondant and cut out a couple of kind of haphazard rectangle shapes, no exact shape or size here. I'm going to take a little bit more of that syrup, or you can also use just plain water here, and just give them a nice coating. And then I'm going to put in my little candy balls. You could also use little balls of fondant here, but no one wants to eat that big chunk of fondant. And I personally would love to have sugar-coated Jaffas or sugar-coated Whoppers. Fold that over so that you're trapping those candy balls inside, and that's going to give you like the puffy shape of the cloud. And you can see I'm using my fingers to really make sure that I'm neatening down the edges and joining them together. That syrup or that water is going to act like a glue. Use your knife and trim around the edges. You don't have to go too close here, because then you can just use your fingers to kind of like push in the edges, making a little cloud shape. You want to bear in mind you want these 2 clouds to be the opposite of each other, so one comes out one side of the rainbow and the other one goes out the other side of the rainbow. Repeat that process for your second cloud, positioning those little balls inside, and on goes your second cloud underneath your rainbow. Now it's as simple as taking your 2 little My Little Pony figurines and positioning them. This is a gorgeous rainbow cake without the My Little Pony, but with the My Little Pony, it's perfect for so many My Little Pony fans. So I'm going to put Rainbow Dash straight on top of the cake, just into that buttercream frosting. For Rarity, I'm going to give her a little bit of frosting on each of her hooves, just to stick her in place. And I'm going to position her down on the cake board. That completes your My Little Pony rainbow layer cake. As I said, you can make it with the ponies, you can make it without. Make sure that you check out my YouTube channel, MyCupcakeAddiction, for those gorgeous My Little Pony unicorn poop cupcakes, which I will link to in the description box below. And as always, thanks very much for tuning in to My Cupcake Addiction.